We're talking about the idea of hope. We're talking about the idea of expectation. And I don't know when it happens for you, leading up to the Christmas excitement and celebration, when you start getting excited and anticipating. For me, as a kid, it was always whenever my mom broke out the Sears and Roebuck catalog or the JCPenney's catalog. You guys remember those? Big, thick things back in the day. And because we would get to take the catalog, we would circle and highlight the things that we were wanting. And so we normally had way more highlighted than was even possible. You know, we might have got one thing. We circled 50. But something about that highlighting of those things started something in your brain and your mind, like, Christmas is coming. There was other things. My mom started decorating the house. That was like a signal for your brains that there was this anticipation building. When we started talking about Christmas plans and which family we're going to go visit, and especially when we started talking about our Christmas dinner, because for us, we had the same Christmas dinner every year, and once my mom brought it up, it was over, because we would just start getting so excited. Because for our Christmas dinners, we do individual little chickens. There's a name for them. Yeah, Cornish hens. I like to call them little chickens. Because you never get a whole chicken. You know, like you go eat someplace, you never get a whole chicken. So we would get a whole chicken. Now it's tiny, it's a little mini chicken, but you get a little tiny leg, a little tiny wing, you know, cut in a little tiny breast. I mean, it was great with rice stuffed in it. And so all these things are these nostalgic memories for me personally that start preparing me with expectation for Christmas Day. But it took me a while as a follower of Jesus to realize that that's not really what Advent was about. And I'm not busting on the little chickens because I love them. I'm not busting on, circling the catalogs and all that. That's all fine and good. But what I'm talking about is Advent is something different. Advent starts in the dark. Advent starts under the shadow. And Advent begins to turn our hearts and begins to move out into the light of the presence of the glory of Christ. And that's different than counting down days till you get your presents, which, don't get me wrong, I love. And so as we walk through this Advent season, we're going to begin with this idea of expectation. And not just expectation of whatever nostalgic memories you have, which are good and fine. I'm not busting on nostalgia, don't get me wrong. But there's something bigger going on here that Advent speaks to. And I want us as a church to feel that during this Advent season. I hope the book will help, Shadow and Light. And I hope as we go to the scriptures, this will help us to get a sense of what this Advent season is about. And so we're going to begin this little journey in the book of Isaiah, which a lot of the Advent expectation comes from the book of Isaiah. It's an Old Testament book, kind of right in the middle of your Bible if you have a normal one. I have additional things in mine, so mine's not right in the middle. But if you want to follow along, I'm just going to read a few verses in Isaiah chapter 2. And I'm just going to read a few verses basically through verse 5. So Isaiah chapter 1 is a difficult chapter in the Hebrew Scriptures because it's dealing with the sad wickedness and unfaithfulness of Judah, and specifically Jerusalem, the capital city, God's city, the city where the temple was located. And it'll say things like in verse 4 of Isaiah chapter 1, "Woe to the sinful nation, a people whose sin is great, a brood of evildoers, children given to corruption. They have forsaken the Lord, they have turned their backs on him." It's very prophetic, very woe to you kind of vibe. In Isaiah chapter 1, the whole chapter is like this. And so you're kind of like, after you read Isaiah chapter 1, you're kind of like, cowering a bit because it's like very heavy on the judgment, and it's difficult to read. But then you come to chapter 2, and there's a big surprise. Something happens. Something that kind of changes the narrative. It changes the imagination of what we've been looking at as we've been looking at unfaithful Israel in Isaiah chapter 1 and all the judgment that's coming on Judah and Jerusalem because of their unfaithfulness to God. But then in chapter 2, we turn a corner and we're talking about the future of God's people. So we know that judgment is coming in the present, Isaiah is saying, back in these ancient times. And now he's saying, but in the midst of judgment, remember that God has something in store in the future. You're in the darkness. You're in the shadow now. And this nation is about to come and pummel you as a nation. But look toward the future because something good is on the horizon, even in the midst of your distress and sorrow. Look what it says. Verse 2 of chapter 2. In the days to come, the mountains of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be raised above the hills. All the nations shall stream to it. Many peoples shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall come forth instruction, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations and shall arbitrate for many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nations shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Now that's a whole different vibe, isn't it? So I want you to join me this morning in posturing your heart with the people of Israel with this heart of expectation. But I'm not just talking about nostalgia. I'm talking about expectation for something bigger, something massive. And so I want us just to posture our hearts in this way. So here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to ask you to expect a couple of things based on what this text is asking us to expect. So first of all, I want you to expect a coming day when the mountain of God will rise. That's the image given here in chapter 2. Notice the supernatural nature of the mountain's rise. In the days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains and shall be raised above the hills. This is something supernatural. So we've been talking about, so you know this by now, but what happens in the ancient mindset on the mountains? We've covered this over and over again. It just keeps coming back to it. What happens on the mountains in the ancient, not just Israel, but all the ancient peoples of this day? They had an idea of things that happened up on the mountain. And what was it that happened on the top of mountains? Yeah, this is where divinity, this is where heaven and earth comes together, is on top of mountains. And so all the nations in Israel's time, they had temples and places of worship up on mountains because they were getting as close as they could to God in their conception. And so for Isaiah to say that there's coming a day when the mountain of Jerusalem will be raised above all the others, he's talking about a day when God will be supreme over all the nations, over all the earth. And this is a supernatural thing. And so I think for my heart, what this means for me is I don't want to get disenchanted with the future possibilities that are on the horizon, because God is going to do something in the future that will be like a supernatural raising of his glory above all others. And so I think for us, we need a renewal of wonder. So that when I talk about the glory of God being raised above all others, there's this sense of awe. And maybe for many of us, we often lose that wonder. And I think that what part of this expectation that we're trying to cultivate during this Advent season, I think that what we need to begin with is a renewal of wonder. And I think we should start with the little things and then build up. So the wonder in little things, wonder in ordinary things. That if we just look a little bit closer, wonder in food and coffee and conversation and music and art and well-crafted poems and a good long book with captivating characters or captivating ideas, wonder at the snow falling on the moonlit night or a pathway in the forest by a mountain creek, or wonder at the beautiful process of making homemade bread or frying empanadas while drinking expensive whiskey, or wonder in good in God. So as we cultivate wonder in these little things that we go, ooh, that's cool, ooh, that's good, ooh, that's nice. As we cultivate that, what we're doing is we're setting ourselves up so that when we see the glory of God, we have cultivated our hearts for wonder. Because I'm going to tell you right now, you will not be able to adjust to the wonder and the glory of God if you haven't trained your heart for the little wonders of the little ordinary things that you stumble upon every day. I mean, I try to cultivate, this is something I don't just talk about. I try to do this in my life. I don't do it well every day. And some days I miss so much because I'm not intentionally cultivating that wonder. But if you open your eyes and if you posture your heart for wonder, you will be delighted by all the moments of wonder all around you. I mean, one of them happened to me last Sunday when the choir was singing. There was one particular person, I won't say her name, Rita, but her name will remain nameless, but her smile was so captivating that I literally was just like, it was just that small. She was just singing the choir. I couldn't take my eyes off her because of the joy that she was beaming with. Thank you, by the way, Rita. Made my Sunday. But those little moments of wonder, if we cultivate our heart for those little moments of wonder, then we can understand when Isaiah says there's going to come a day when the glory of God is going to rise above all and all eyes are going to be locked in on him, and you can start feeling it now because you've been cultivating your heart for that grandness. The problem is what we do is we sink so low and we cultivate such inane non-wonder. You know, whether it be just scrolling constantly or whether it just be turning our emotions and our minds off and not seeing what is all around us. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I want you to have a sense of expectation this year. An expectation that Israel would have had in the desolation of their treasured city and temple, and yet looking with hope towards something on the horizon that was literally going to blow their minds. And this is what Isaiah is trying to do in chapter 2. Advent is a good time to rekindle that wonder, that longing for the big works of God that make something beautiful out of this mess we find ourselves in. A poet named W.H. Auden is one of my favorite poets. He said, "Nothing can save us that is possible." Like, for something to undo the mess that we see every day, it's got to be so big that it's like, this isn't even possible. It's got to be so good, so big. And so I believe that wonder and expectation kind of live in the same cul-de-sac. And so if you're like, I don't have that expectation, that delight in the future that God has promised, that he will restore things, it's kind of like lacking. When you say that, in my heart just kind of sits like, just kind of fizzles out. You know what I'm talking about? Well, then I would say to you, you need to begin now to start cultivating wonder in just little things. And that will prepare your heart for the expectation that Isaiah is offering the people of Israel in Isaiah 2. So let's get this expectation jump-started with wonder. That's the first thing. The second thing is this. Expect a day when the mountain of God will be the center of the world. Notice in the text the exciting universal centrality of the mountain of God. It shall be raised above the hills. All the nations will stream to it. Many peoples shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways and that we may walk in his path. Do you notice how all nations, many peoples, it's a universal reality. And so when we think about what God is going to do in the future, we need to have an expectation of a universal reality. So Christian or theological expectation always has a universal vibe to it. You can't have a truly Christian imagination or a theological imagination and not have a huge love or a huge vision for all peoples. It's not even possible. There is no Christianity that doesn't include all the nations gathering together in the glory of God. If you claim to be a Christian and you do not have that, then I would encourage you to just read the Bible, like the whole thing. Because it is constantly opening up wider and wider, greater and greater groups of people. God's mercy keeps expanding and expanding to the very end. And so I want to encourage you with this expectation to have a universal sensibility to your expectation. So if you're thinking on this scale, because I'm trying to get you to think expectation on this grand of a scale, here's the good news. What happens is that superstars, that we get caught up in, they lose their glow a little bit. Just one little individual, there's certain people that I admire, that I, if something's about them on the news, I'm going to stop and listen to it. If there's some book on them, I'll read it. And I follow their life. But what happens is when I see this grand scale of what God is doing, this universal scale, all these little things that kind of distract me tend to lose their oomph. Does that make sense? And it's not that those are bad, but it's just I want to have a vision that's universal in scope. I want to have an expectation that's so big that all these little things around me, it's like, oh, that's cool, but my heart has been cultivated for something massive. And it won't be satisfied until this massive reality comes to pass, where the glory of God is lifted up above all peoples, and all peoples stream in to understand and know the glory of God. And so I want to encourage you to expect a coming day when many people will move with passion toward God and his ways. This text says that these future people will have a passion to learn the ways of God. So this is where I have to encourage my heart. Again, I see many people around me in my own life where there is no passion for God. There is no love for God. And I can get discouraged by that. Do any of you get discouraged by this? You have people in your life, you're like, I just want them to love God. I want them to see the beauty and the glory of Jesus, and they don't. They don't see it at all. Well, you know what? This encourages me that one day there's going to be this time when all people's gaze and their hearts are going to beat for God like it's beating out of their chest. That day is coming. And so our expectations can help us not get disheartened when people don't show interest in the wonder and the ways of God. A day is coming when they will all move with determination and joy to know and understand God. And it also helps us not get disheartened when we're just kind of around a lot of unkind, cranky, cruel people. You ever felt this too? Like you're just in a space where people are just mean or unkind. You're like, it just disheartens you. But the expectation from our vantage point of darkness is that there is a day coming when people's hearts will say, God, how do you want us to live? How do you want us to be? This is what Isaiah is capturing, where all the nations are turning in this way to say, God, what is your good way? We want to follow whatever that is. So the fourth thing and final thing is expect a coming day when weapons will be repurposed for better uses. Did you get that in the text? The swords will be turned into plowshares, the spears into pruning hooks. In other words, there's no need for weapons to mow people down because everybody's on the same page, moving toward the glory of God and working together in creativity and in establishing a good earth. So when we sang that song that Jay just did the sweet solo on, the line is, I know the world is not my home. Now, I like that line if you understand it. Because I want to say to you, the earth is your home. The world and the system, the evil system that is broken, is not. That's why you walk in the world, and half the time you feel at home, and half the time you feel like, what's going on here? I feel so disconnected, like why? I just feel oppressed half the time. Well, that's because the world system is different than the good earth that God created. And one day the Bible tells us that God is going to restore the whole earth so that we can walk around going, the earth is my home. So we'll have to change the song, but for now, that song was right. But this is what is happening. This is the expectation that we have, that one day God will do some things to such a degree that we won't even need weapons anymore because there's a universal peace that will be present. So the reason I'm telling you all this, and the reason we're starting here, is because Isaiah chapter 1 starts in the darkness of judgment and pain and sorrow and tears. And then in chapter 2, there's a little light that's turned on, a light of hope, a light of expectation. That there's a day coming when the mountain of God will rise above and people will be drawn to the glory of God, and their hearts will cry out to know and to understand the ways of God, so much so that they'll put down their weapons and they'll join together. And this is not just some kind of pipe dream, by the way. This is what is promised all throughout the Hebrew Scriptures and is partially revealed to us and opened for us in Jesus' own life. And then he makes more promises that tie back into these promises. In other words, saying, one day I'm coming back to restore all things, just like the prophets, the Israel prophets of old prophesied. I'm coming to do what they said. I will complete this grand, universal, glory of God project on your behalf. And this is our expectation. So the way I want to close this is by having you think of two songs. Because during the Christmas season, during Advent season, we're all listening to Christmas music probably already, right? Is probably everybody doing it? Thanksgiving Day 1, you guys like play, right? Or before. Okay, that's not acceptable. No, I was doing it too. No, but I used to have a pretty hard and fast rule after Thanksgiving, but now I just gave up and I do it whenever. But yeah, so you're already listening to the music, and I'm hoping to get through the end of the sermon before my voice goes. Do you hear this happening? It's like, okay, yeah. So, do you guys remember, so there's certain albums that you kind of like are your favorite albums when Christmas comes, you kind of get ready for them. Do you guys do the Amy Grant Christmas album? I don't know why, but that's just, there's something nostalgia buttons that hit that for me. She has a song on her Christmas album called My Grown-Up Christmas List. Do you guys remember that? Some of you are looking like nuts. Yes, no. Some of you do, okay. So she sings, I'm not going to sing it for you, but she sings, do you remember me? I sat upon your knee. I wrote to you with childhood fantasies. Well, I'm all grown up now and still need some help somehow. I'm not a child, but my heart can still dream. So here's my lifelong wish, my grown-up Christmas list. So you get the vibe, right? Even if you haven't heard the song, you understand. She's sitting on Santa's knee as an adult. That's weird, but you know what I'm saying, okay? And she's going to make her Christmas list as an adult. And it's not, a tricycle, or, no, a bicycle, and a doll, or whatever. This is what her list is. No more lives torn apart. That wars would never start. No more lives torn apart. Okay, yeah. That wars would never start. That time would heal all hearts. That everyone would have a friend. And right would always win. And love would never end. This is my grown-up Christmas list. Now, there's two things about this song. One, she may not understand it, because I don't think she was too theologically deep. No offense to Amy Grant, but I don't think that was her point. But when she is using these lines, I don't know if she knows it or whoever wrote it, but these are deep theological realities all throughout the Hebrew Scriptures and into the New Testament. And you can hear them, okay? No more lives torn apart. So this is like if all tears and sorrow were taken away from the human predicament. That wars would never start. We just read that in Isaiah 2, that there's this time that is promised when the swords will be laid down and they're going to take up something that they can like beat the grain with instead. A time, and time would heal all hearts. This is that whole person reality of a renewed capacity for love and kindness and forgiveness and empathy and graciousness that Jesus brings by the power of the Spirit. She says that every person would have a friend. Well, this is what the church was supposed to do. It was like a new community that was including all people in this new established way of friendship. She says that that right would always win. This is what she's asking, Santa Claus for. That right would always win. That the context of justice would be set right. And then that love would never end. Now, the problem with this song is that it's completely sentimental. Right? She's asking Santa Claus for this. I'm telling you, Santa Claus cannot deliver. If he could, he would have a long time ago. This is not, do you understand what I'm saying? She's asking for rich, theological rooted realities that every human longs for, but the song is sentimental. She's on Santa's lap going, look at my list, Santa. And so it's this weird, I don't know what to do with that song. Half of me goes, yes, peace, the glory of God raised. And then, wait, we're asking Santa? This is our grown-up Christmas list. And I'm just playing off this. But my point is legitimate, though. You cannot imagine with Christian expectation the massiveness of what God will do in the realm of sentimentality and nostalgia. It's too big for that. It can't hold it. And so I want to invite you to think on a bigger scale by reveling in some of these deeper, richer hymns that our worship team just led us in a few minutes ago. O come, Emmanuel. That's the second song I'll mention before we close. O come, Emmanuel is a song that's been sung in the church since about the 8th century. Not the way we sing it. It's only been sung the way we sing it for a couple hundred years. But originally was a song that has these little lines that the Catholic Church would sing as it led up to Christmas Day. They would start on the 17th, and they would sing one of them at a time, and the next day they'd sing another one, and the next day they'd sing another, and there's 7 of them. And these 7 lines all expressed a sense of the coming of King Jesus and who he was, okay? So I've written them out for you. I know you don't know Latin, but just so you can see it, okay? So these are the 7 lines, and so they would, on the 17th, they would sing this one, on the 18th, they'd sing this one, leading up to the 23rd, to here. And each of them begins with O and has a name that is associated with the work of Jesus. So Sepentia is wisdom. So we think of Jesus, oh, Jesus, our wisdom. This one, you probably know this one, oh, Adonai. That's one that even English speakers kind of know. Oh, Adonai, that's just a name for God. Oh, radix Jesse is the stem or the root of Jesse. This one is the key of David. You can see some of them, the names are the same, okay, but the key of David. This one's cool. This is Dayspring. Oh, Dayspring. And then you have King of the Gentiles, and then finally, this one, oh, Emmanuel, God with us. Now, these were a way to set the expectation of the church leading up to the celebration of the birth of Christ in a deep theological, Jesus-centered way. And that's what I want to encourage you to posture your heart with us toward this way of thinking. And there's actually something really cool. This is, I love when people do things like this. But they actually did this very intentionally. If you read it backwards and you take the first letters, you have arrow, crass. And that term, they did this intentionally so that you could, this phrase has this sense of, it kind of means tomorrow I will come. So it's even the way they set this up was a posture of expectation. They literally were doing what we were singing, "Come, Jesus, come," in this Latin liturgical, this is like a Benedictine kind of chant framework. So if you can go listen to this online, the chanting of these. But this is the framework from which an Anglican priest re-established and wrote, O come, Emmanuel. He took these themes and these ideas and put them into the form we sing it now, O come, Emmanuel. Capturing all the same ideas of this song with this, tomorrow I will come, this expectation of the coming of King Jesus. So all I want you to do this Sunday is notice where you are in the dark. We're day one of Advent. We are in the darkness of Isaiah chapter 1. We're seeing the brokenness. We're sensing judgment and lightning and all these horrible things going on around us. We just have to posture our hearts there. And then each day we try to step out of the shadow a little bit more toward the light of Jesus. And this journey of Advent is a journey out of the darkness into the light. And so kind of see yourself on this journey of expectation. And I want to encourage you, you can be sentimental, you can be nostalgic later, but on Sundays, and when you're reading your material from the light book, the Shadow and Light book, I want to encourage you to expand your wonder, expand your horizon to an expectation that is universal, that is supernatural, and that will draw all people to the glory of God. It's so big I can barely imagine. But I want to encourage you to start setting your wonder, setting your heart toward that. And then together, as we journey out of the darkness, each week our hearts will open up a little bit more toward the light, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And so what you'll find is that on Christmas, you have worked your heart to such a degree that you are just waiting to bring in the wonder of the glory of King Jesus. And that's my heart for you, that you will experience that through this whole Advent season together with us. So would you bow your heads and close your eyes?